Okay, good morning, dear students. Let us start. So, the last topic which we had covered was your graceful degradation. Now, we are moving to the next topic, that is your affordances. Okay, so according to Norman was a researcher who has come up with the definition of affordances in 1988, and he says that affordances provide strong clues to the operation of the things, like plates are for pushing, knobs are for turning, slots are for inserting things into, balls are for throwing or bouncing, and when affordances are taken advantage of, the user knows what to do just by looking. No picture, no label or instruction is needed. So when we talk about affordances, it means what? Just by seeing the object, you understand or you get the hint that what that operation that object is going to perform. So that is your affordances. For example, when we talk about plates, we have a plates. The plates are used for pushing, like you have a deck and you're pushing the plates into it. When you see the knobs are used for turning on and off. Slots, when you see any slots, it is used for inserting things into. Whenever someone gives us the balls are either used for throwing or bouncing. And the user knows just by seeing it. It doesn't require any additional picture, an external label or any instruction. Okay. So in short, so there are just a clues, or you can say hint, that just by seeing the object, the users interact with something, and it doesn't require any physical or digital knowledge over it or information. Okay. Another example which we can take is whenever we see a door handle. So just by seeing the door handle, we know that we have to either push it clockwise or anti-clockwise to open or close it. Okay. So the fundamental aspect of affordances is what? That any type of interaction, okay, just by seeing it, you understand that what operation that interaction will take place. Okay. So whoever is designing any product, okay, so the first thing you have to make sure that designer should explicitly or implicitly just think about how the users and the actor of system will behave or perform based on the influencing factors. Okay. So just by seeing the product, that you come to understand. So designer has to design in such a way that it should be very simple, it should not be complex, you should not be feel difficulty in using it. Okay. Norman also says that when you talk about affordances, complex things at times may require explanation. Okay, but when simple things is considered, it should not require an explanation or any label or instruction. If it requires instruction or explanation for simple things, then you should think that your design has failed somewhere. Okay. So for complex things, okay, something is complex, the object or you have never seen before, or operations which you have never seen. So if the objects are complex, then you need to study about it, then you need to read about it, then it is fine. But simple objects which you are actually using in day to day life, which are easily known by every one of us, so those simple objects should not need any instruction. Okay. So when it is like that, then your product design is accepted and it is very good. Okay. So in very simple place, first place I've told you that whenever you are designing your products, the first thing you have to take care of that you are designing for people, you're not designing for yourself. So whenever you're designing for people, make it very simple, your design has to be very simple, so that just by seeing the design, you can understand that what operation it is going to perform, how it is going to be there. You don't need to give more hints or clues, just by seeing it, you know it. Okay. So that is your affordances. So we'll just take in a quick recap because this is the end of your chapter 2. So we'll take a quick recap of whatever we have covered so far. Okay, so the very first topic which we had covered was your CALM technology. Okay, so CALM technology was also called as CALM computing, and it was come up from a researcher whose name was Mark Weiser. Okay, so he has said that whenever you talk about CALM technology or any type of technology, just don't go for complexity. Try to simplify the complexity and not introduce the new ones. So that was what he has quoted. What does he means to say that? Okay, he has come up with a definition which states that systems that don't vie for attention, yet they are ready to provide utility or useful information, when we decide to give them attention. So this was his definition, where he says that there are systems that doesn't require any attention, and whenever you give them attention also, they are ready to give you information. Next, he has come up with 8 principles. Okay, so the principles are: first, technology should require the smallest possible amount of attention. Technology should inform and create calm. Technology should make use of periphery, that is your environment. Okay. Technology should amplify the best of the technology and best of humanity. This is very much important principle whenever you're designing IoT product. Okay. There should be best of the technology and best of the humanity. At the very first place, you have to consider that you are designing for people. So make it very simple, make it very connecting, make it very easy to communicate. Okay. Technology can communicate, but doesn't need to speak. So your technology can communicate with you with any type of signs, sensors, okay? But it doesn't need to speak always with you. Technology should work even when it fails. Principle 7, the right amount of technology is minimum needed to solve the problem. So you need a proper balance of your technology, not more or not less. As that is required for you to solve the problem, at least that balance of technology, minimum balance has to be there. Okay. Last principle 7, principle 8, sorry. Technology should respect your social norms. Okay. It should follow your social norms. It should not violate it and should not break it. Next, we examples of it. We have a tea kettle. Okay, so tea kettle is what? As soon as your tea is ready, it indicates you that your tea is ready, your teapot is ready. Okay, so it is quietly doing a task for you without giving a big buzzer sign or something like that. Okay, next is your lavatory sign. So that is nothing but a very, you can say, a simple displays that allows you to see whether the restroom on the plane is occupied or not. Okay, this message is very much universal and everybody just by seeing it can understand. So that is an important property of calm technology. Just by seeing it, you understand it. Okay, you don't need to go much in detail into it. Next, we have Roomba vacuum cleaner. This is a vacuum cleaner that works only on simple tones. Okay, there are no voice commands here. So what, whenever your task is completed, okay, it gives a cheerful tone. When it is stuck, it gives a big sound, and it has some indication lights like orange and green, which tells you the status of it. Okay, next, last is your smart badge. Smart badge is something, is your RFID cards. Okay, they are basically a simple touch which you have to touch over your door or elevator panels, and you can easily gain access to the rooms or wherever it is being used. Okay, so these are your examples. You can add more examples to it, no problem with it, but you have to explain it very well. Next case study live wire that we are going to take today in the last at the end. Next is ambient technology. Okay, ambient technology is a technology that requires some amount of interaction, you can say, or attention from the users. Okay, so most of the ambient technology, when you talk about, they are your voice assistants. Okay, they require some sort of attention. Okay, they need some inputs from you all. Okay, so Mark Wieser has defined it as the most profound technologies are those that disappears and they weave themselves into the fabric of everyday life until they are indistinguishable from it. So these are those technology, those are so well, they have weaved in our daily lives that they are just indistinguishable. Okay, so when I talk about ambient technology, it is also referred as ambient intelligence. Okay, why it is called as ambient intelligence? Because it senses your environment. Okay, and according to the response of the people, it do the task. That is why it is called as ambient intelligence. Okay, so intelligence here refers to the sensors, okay, that senses your environment. At times it is also called as ambient computing. Okay, at times it is also called as UB computing, that is ubiquitous computing. Okay, so when I talk about ambient technology, it actually combines the best of all. So best of all can be your voice, can be your speak recognition systems, can be your gestures, your augmented reality, your all your wearable devices all together that are tied up with IoT and AI can become the best ambient technology. Okay, next, the example for this are the two, that is your Alexa and Google Home. both are the products which are competing each other, as every one of us must be knowing it. These are nothing but your voice assistants that takes voice commands from you, and according to the voice commands, they give you the result back. Okay, so the other examples of your ambient technology can be your self-driving cars, okay, which creates an ambient environment wherein you, according to yourself, you're going to control your car through the voice. Next topic was your magic as metaphor. Okay, so when I talk about magic as metaphor, is nothing but how your ordinary objects have turned into extraordinary object with the term magic. So your magic is nothing but all the technologies that are augmented into your objects, okay, your sensors, your actuators, your controllers, okay, or your all wireless technologies which have come up with it, and they are acting as a magic. So now they are no more an ordinary object, they are extraordinary objects. Okay, metaphor is nothing but an element that has transformed from ordinary object to extraordinary. That's like I have given an example of your mobile phone. Okay, initially your mobile phone was just a phone that used to communicate, that just for talking, nothing more than that. But now with the augmentation of technologies with magic, that ordinary mobile have started become a mobile terminals now. Okay, so that is your augmented. So here you have to mention the concept which was highlighted by Venkatesh Rao. Okay, he says that as whenever you move ahead and when you step back and see, you see a big transformation. Okay, so that big transformation is nothing but a magic. Okay, and for people like us, whenever the transformation takes place at that point of time, we refer it as very normal. So that is why I have called it as manufactured normalcy. Means what, everything at this point of time we are feeling is normal, but as soon as the technology will take a next step, and when we move back and when we see, then we see that there is a big transformation. Okay, so in this answer, you have to make sure that you are writing the concept of normal manufactured normalcy. That is nothing but that type of point of time, everything to you appears like normal. Okay, once you have passed that state and you step back and see, then you feel that there is a transformation. Okay, so that is your normalcy. Next, Arthur Clarke has come up with his quotation where he says that any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. As we everybody knows that any technology which is advanced technology is just like a magic for us. Okay, because we really don't know how is it doing, but we, for us, it is like a magic. Like everything is coming at one place, the data is being integrated, the data is being analyzes. Okay, it is sensing your information from how the sensors are working. So everything is just like a magic, because everything is coming to you directly, you are not doing something. The technology itself has become so advanced that it is doing so much for us. Okay, so it, for us, it is nothing but a magic, how your ordinary objects are turning into extraordinary, and it is making us so easy for us to do every complex thing. Okay, this also we are going to study today at the end. Next topic what we had studied was your privacy. Okay, so as we all know that privacy is one of the most important factor which we really need to consider always. Okay, and when you have a platform like internet, so in that case privacy is very much important, because internet itself is a public platform. You are connecting to anonymous devices at single point of time. You don't know those devices, and at times those devices are taking your private information also. So privacy is very much important concern for us whenever we are connecting ourselves to a public network. Okay, so next comes your keeping secrets. Keeping secrets here refers to whatever is your confidential information, whatever is your private or sensitive information, you should not keep it open, you should keep it secretly. So how to keep that data secretly? You have to either encrypt it them. Okay, try to use many encryption technology mechanisms. Okay, you can use MD5, you can use hashing technique. So you have to use some encryption technique wherein your data is encrypted form, it is not available to anyone in the plain text form. Okay, and whenever you are downloading or installing any apps, when you are accepting their permissions, read the permission properly, that what are they asking for, because those are third party apps, and mostly 99% of the apps will ask for your confidential information, that can be the ID password of your social media accounts. So you have to very much be aware that whatever I'm sharing, whatever I'm accepting, whom it is going to and how they can use it, because we don't know how they're going to use it. So that is your keeping secrets. So you have to protect your passwords. You have to make sure your password is in encrypted form. Try to change your password. Keep your passwords in the combination of lowercase, uppercase, okay, numerics or special characters. In that way, you have to set your password. Next topic which we had seen was whose data is it anyway. Okay, so when we are talking about a public network, we really not concerned about whose data is it, because when you have kept the data over a public platform, my assumption is what the data is easily accessible to anyone. Nobody has a right over it, so anybody can have an access to it, isn't it? So it really doesn't matters over a public platform who is the owner of the data. Okay, and as we all know that there are number of sensors in IoT, so we are actually don't know that whose data is it, who is gathering that data, and whom is that data belongs to. Okay, we have taken an example or a case study wherein there was a camera deployed and an advertising hoarding, so to check to see who is seeing those advertising. Okay, so the question they had asked her that does the data belong to the company or does the data belong to the people. Okay, so to be very honest, whenever we are using a public platform, we have to make sure that since all are at the same level, all are the using a public platform, so the rights has to be same. Okay, however rights you have to access my data, I should also have a rights to see my data. So to be honest, your rights has to be equal. You should be able to see that the company which is capturing your data is capturing what type of data. Is it capturing your face? What else data is being captured? What the data is being stolen from the company with respect to me, so I should have also some equal rights over it. But there is no equal rights as such. When you're dealing with public platform, they are not sharing any data, they are just taking the data from us. Okay, in contrast to this, whenever you are dealing with a private platform, okay, such as your VPN, okay, or all the private networks which you have designed for yourself, in that case you cannot ask someone to share the data because they are using a private platform. Okay, and at times whenever they are taking any data also, they will be informing you in that case. Okay, because they are securing their data. So here it means what, in public platform there is no rights given to anyone. Okay, so anybody can access any piece of data, they can use it in any way. But when you talk about private platform, say in that case the rights are given, everybody cannot see all the data. According to their rights, they are allowed to access that piece of code. So that is your whose data is it anyway. Next topic, web thinking for connected devices. As we all know that IoT is nothing but a connected devices network. So it allows devices to be sensed or controlled remotely across your networks, and it helps you to create opportunities, and you can integrate your physical worlds into your computer connected worlds. Okay, because of IoT has come into the picture, it has actually improved the accuracy of the result. It has actually increased your efficiency as well, and it has actually reduced the human intervention. The systems are not depending on voice commands only to do their task. They are doing much more than that. So web thinking means what, it is automatically thinking, it is automatically knowing that what you want next, and what can be at the best of all. Okay, so web thinking is for connected devices. Next topic which we had seen was small pieces loosely joined. So when I talk about small pieces loosely joined, it means that whenever you are building any component, okay, whenever you're building any service, so in that case you should always go for loosely joined architecture. Okay, why we have to go for loosely joined? Because when you go for this approach, your all the pieces which you have joined can work independently as well. Okay, when you go for tight integration, they cannot work on independently because they are dependent on somebody else also, because you have tightly hold them, isn't it? So whenever we talk about architecture over the network, it should be loosely joined. There can be small pieces, or if you have a large piece, then divide into small and then loosely join and connect to them. Loosely joined means what, connect them. Okay, not too tight but keep them loose so that they can work themselves also as independently. Okay, as we all know, internet is a big service. Why it has been grown so fast, why it has been able to do it so well? Because the integration over the internet, all the servers that are connected, all the transformation that takes place, the exchange of information that takes place, all has been loosed. Okay, they have not been tightly coupled. If you tightly couple, then you wait for the other to get the input, and then the next process will take place. So even if one server fails, even if one system goes down, that becomes easy for them to work independently also. So that can happen only when you are allowing every device over the network to work independently also. All the data will be stored at all the servers, all the information will be there. If one fails, then it can be backed by other. Okay, that is why in networking, if you see, the centralized systems are the one which have more lag as compared to your distributed system. Distributed systems have many advantages, and when we talk about in today's reality, we are using a distributed system only. Okay, we are not using a centralized system where everything take place at one place. When we talk about centralized system, they are those systems which are very tightly coupled. Okay, everything is at one place, you cannot share any information anywhere, you have to access the information from one place only. So it becomes very tightly coupled where dependency lies over the one system. Okay, but when you go for loosely joined, where you make all your systems, your servers or your all components work, that can work independently themselves, then that is a very good architecture. Okay, so that is your loosely joined, where all of them can work independently and they are not much dependent on each other. However, all the information will be there with everyone. Okay, so that can easily back up in the case of failure. Another thing that we have to consider whenever we are going for loosely coupled architecture, that we have to not go for new technologies. Okay, you have to go for all generalized technology or generalized mechanism. Okay, so far in networking, if you see, the wireless application protocol is one of the most protocol which is used. Okay, previously it was wired, but since we have come up with internet, we have come up with distributed architecture, we had to come up with an extended version of it or extension of it. So now wide networks are now have become wireless, that are done with the help of your wireless application protocols. Okay, so whenever you are trying to build any component, try to use existing architectures, try to use existing protocols, so that you can easily recycle them, you can reuse them, it becomes very easy for you. Okay, next topic is first class citizen of the internet. So when I talk about first class citizen of the internet, as I've already told before, that first class refers to all the services, all the protocols which are already existing over the internet. And since years we are using those protocols only for any communication, for any exchange of information or for any interaction. Okay. For example, in your programming terminology, when I talk about first class, those are nothing but all the common operation, pass by value, pies by reference. Okay, then return from function, polymorphism, assigning the object to the variable, any object. Okay, in programming terminology, it can be of any language, it be Java, it can be C++, it can be oops, the mechanism of it remains the same, the working remains the same. Only what changes is with the your programming syntax, it changes how the way it is being declared, rest everything remains the same. So first class citizen means report all the protocols or the mechanism, all the workings which are already there, which are being used since years and years, they are the first class citizen. Every time you have to refer them or you have to use those only for communication. Okay, when we talk about in IoT, the first class citizens on the internet is nothing but all your IP protocols. Okay, your TCP IP, UDP suite, which you are used for transforming your communication, the information over the internet. So since years and years, IP protocol is only used for communication. Okay, there can be extension, there can be wireless extension to it, there can be some new technology also, but the basic ground study of any wireless system or any networking system in internet remains your IP. So IP remains your core structure for any reference. Okay, with that you can create new technologies, with that you can create anything as per your reference, but the initial step of communication for any devices over the network, you have to use IP protocols. Okay, and as we all know that initially your mobiles were just used for communication, but once they had come up with internet into it, you had to move from wired technology to the wireless technology with the help of your wireless application protocol, that is WAP. Next topic which we had seen was graceful degradation. Okay, now when you talk about graceful degradation, it is nothing but ability of your computers, your machines, your electronic system or network to maintain at least limited functionality. Okay, when they have to maintain at least limited functionality, when the large portion of it has been either down, either destroyed, or it is inoperative in nature. Okay, so that is your graceful degradation. Graceful here refers to what, how gracefully it is doing its task, though it is doing slowly, the speed is slow, but it is doing it. Okay, it is seamlessly doing it, effortlessly doing it, without you knowing it, that this major portion of your network is down for today. Okay, so that is the word graceful here means. So basically, when I talk about this type of system, they are also called as fault tolerant system. Why they are called as fault tolerant system? Because they actually try to maintain themselves in the cases of fault as well. Okay, even if your system is down, it will be slower 10 to 20%, but the most of the part will be still working. Slowly it will work, but it will definitely work. Okay, and the main purpose of the graceful degradation is to prevent from catastrophic failures. So what do you mean by catastrophic failure? Suddenly, if any failure occurs and then their recovery is really not possible, in that case, those are called as catastrophic failures. So when we talk about graceful degradation, you have to make sure that even if the failure occurs, there will be not complete down. The system will not be complete down. The entire system can work at least 10 to 20% slower. That is fine. That is acceptable, but it should not go down completely, because whenever you design any network, the first characteristic which we really consider is reliability. We ask that how reliable is this network, either it is 24/7 up, or what is the downtime. Okay, so always when you talk about reliability over the network, we have two things in our mind: reliability, its downtime, and its uptime. So that we really need to consider. So even in case of failure, your system should work slower, that's fine, but it should work, it should not completely go down. So example of graceful degradation which I had quoted, like for example, if your internet is not working properly, there are some issues with internet, so your browsers also automatically become slow. So in whenever you are using any application, like you are using an application of Gmail, so in that case it will show you the lower version, the HTML version of your web page, instead of showing the higher version, because since your internet itself is slow, so entire system has also become slow. This is from your end. Similarly, even if it happens on their end, if the server is down, so it is backup by some other server, so in that case also what happens, your system becomes down. Whenever you are opening your mail, the process is very slow. So whenever the system is down, it will work slowly. Okay, but it will completely not tell you that we have shut off for today and we are not going to work anymore. So that will not the message you will ever get from your systems or application. They will work slower, but they will definitely work. Okay, last topic which we had seen today was your affordances. So when I talk about affordances, is nothing but which are direct clues or hints that are given to the operations of the things. So just by seeing the operations, you understand what they are intended to do, what they are going to do for you. Okay, so examples they have given: your plates are for pushing, knobs are for turning, slots are for inserting the things into, balls are for throwing or bouncing. Okay, so in affordances you have to make sure that all simple things which are there should not require any instruction. Okay, if it requires any instruction, means your design has failed somewhere. Okay, for complex things, if you require instruction, if you require any picture, you label or extra information, then that it is fine. Okay, this definition was quoted by Norman in his book. The book name was Design of Everyday Things. He has taken some concept of IIT into this, and he has come up with this definition. Okay, so that's it for the day. We have completed chapter 2. In the next lecture, we will be moving to chapter number 3. Okay, thank you, everyone.